Okay, so are you ready to dive into some serious drama? Because today, we are talking about a royal rivalry that gets intense. Really intense. Life or death intense.
You could say that again?
We're looking at King Saul, the future king, David, and a whole bunch of moral dilemmas all crammed into just a few chapters.
That's right. 1 Samuel chapters 22 through 24.
We're talking about a story where you got to imagine being hunted by your own king, the guy who's actually supposed to be your mentor.
Talk about pressure.
That's David's reality.
Yeah, it's a total pressure cooker, that's for sure. And not just in terms of power dynamics. We're talking about faith and conscience and the human impact of what happens when paranoia and ambition collide.
We are picking up this story with David on the run.
Right.
After his victory over Goliath, he's been labeled an enemy of the state. But Saul, instead of celebrating this victory, well, he kind of spirals.
Yeah, he does. And it gets bad, like really bad. Even the priests who help David aren't safe.
And that's where the massacre at Nob comes in, right?
Exactly. Chapter 22, chilling turning point in the story. Saul finds out that the priest, Ahimelech, he helped David. He gave him food. He even gave him Goliath's sword.
Oh, man.
Right. But instead of seeing it as a simple act of kindness, Saul orders the execution of not just Ahimelech, but his entire priestly lineage. We're talking 85 lives.
85. We're not talking about soldiers here. We are talking about priests. This is meant to send a message. This is terrifying. It really gives you a sense of Saul's mental state.
Oh, absolutely. This is a complete disregard for religious authority. And it's a brutal demonstration of just how far Saul will go to consolidate his power. He's not just eliminating threats, he's making it very, very clear that any defiance will be met with absolute and ruthless force.
And then there's Doeg. Let's not forget about Doeg.
Right.
He's the one who actually carries this out, this horrific act. He's not even a soldier. He's a servant of Saul. And he jumps at the chance to inform on David and then to participate in this slaughter. It's like, how far will blind loyalty take you? It makes you wonder, who are the truly dangerous ones? The kings or the people who enable them?
Yeah, that is the question, isn't it? Doeg isn't just following orders here. He is an active participant in Saul's paranoia. It's a dark reflection of how ambition, it can corrupt anyone, even someone who might think they're just serving a higher power.
And yet, in the midst of all of this, in this horrific massacre, there's this little glimmer of hope. One of Ahimelech's sons, Abiathar, he gets away.
He does.
He goes straight to David, and he brings something with him. He brings the ephod. And I know some of our listeners might be thinking, what is the ephod?
Right.
It was a priestly garment, kind of like a sacred vest that was used to communicate with God.
It's important to remember that this isn't just some cool relic. The ephod was central to the priestly role. It was a physical manifestation of their ability to actually seek God's guidance. So the fact that Abiathar escapes with this and he brings it to David, that's a really big deal.
Yeah, it feels very symbolic. It's like, even though David's on the run, he's not cut off.
Right.
There's still that connection to divine authority.
Right. Absolutely. And this sets the stage for the next chapter in the story, which is David's encounter with the people of Keilah. This is where that divine connection is put to the test. The Philistines, they're attacking Keilah. And David, being David, always the warrior, he asks God if he should intervene.
Go for it, God says, right?
Right. Sounds simple enough.
But David, probably feeling a little uneasy about trusting people, he uses the ephod to ask a follow-up. He asks, okay, God, if I save these people, will they turn around and hand me over to Saul? And the answer is yes.
Talk about a moral dilemma, right? You're being told to be a hero, but also that you'll be betrayed in the process. What do you do with that? It really speaks to just how complex faith can be, trying to reconcile human choices with what you believe to be divine guidance.
And it makes you wonder, why? Why would the people of Keilah do that? They know Saul is out of control. They know that David is a good leader. Why betray the guy who just saved you?
Well, never underestimate the power of fear, right? Especially when you're dealing with a king like Saul. Gratitude might be a powerful motivator, but self-preservation, it's even stronger. They're caught between a rock and a hard place.
That's a tough break for David. And it also kind of highlights the contrast between these two leaders. Saul, spiraling, controlled by fear, and then David, even though everything seems stacked against him, he's trying to find his way through using his faith and strategy.
Yeah, we are really seeing two different leadership styles emerge. One is driven by fear and impulsivity, and the other by this combination of faith, strategy, and a really strong sense of right and wrong. And it's this clash, these two very different guys, these destinies, that brings us to one of the most intense moments in the whole story. We're talking about the cave, you know, the one.
Oh yeah, the cave. David's on the run, he's laying low, he's trying to stay one step ahead. And Saul, I don't know, maybe he's tired, maybe he's just having a bad day, but he decides to duck into a cave.
The same cave where David and his men are hiding.
Awkward.
Talk about awkward. But it's more than just awkward. This is like dramatic irony central. Saul, he doesn't have any idea who's in the back of that cave. And he settles in for a little, well, privacy, let's say. And David's men, they see this as a sign. It's like, this is it. He's been delivered right to us. Destiny. This is their chance.
Yeah.
But David, what does he do? He sneaks over to Saul and cuts off a corner of his robe.
A little anticlimactic.
Yeah, it's not exactly the epic showdown you might expect. But that's the thing about David, right? He keeps us on the surface, cutting off a piece of fabric, it seems like, what are you doing? But like most things in this story, there's more to it.
So unpack it for us. Why not just strike while the iron's hot? I mean, this is his chance to take what a lot of people are saying is rightfully his.
Well, and that's where we really see David's character come through. He's a warrior, yeah. But he's not driven by that, not by bloodlust, not by ambition. Remember that ephod, that connection to something bigger? That's key to understanding this moment. David, he respects Saul as God's chosen king. He's not perfect, but he's still the king. To kill him, that would be different. That would be crossing a line, taking power, not receiving it.
And he's not even that comfortable with cutting off a little piece of a robe. He even says as much. He tells his man, "The Lord forbid that I should do such a thing to my master." It seems like he's wrestling with it. Like I could have ended it.
Absolutely, it's weighing on him. And that's huge. He could have justified it in so many ways, self-defense, you name it. But he doesn't. It's like he's walking this line between justice and revenge. And in that restraint, it's almost as if he proves himself worthy of that kingship that Saul's clinging to.
But David's not just going to let Saul walk out of the cave without knowing how close he came, right?
Oh, no, he confronts him. And what's so fascinating here is that he doesn't brag about it. He doesn't gloat. He appeals to Saul. He really does, holding up that little piece of fabric as proof. Like, look, I had you.
And Saul, well, he completely breaks down. He weeps. He even calls David his son again. It's like for a moment, there's this, I don't know, this echo of their old bond. Do you think he gets it? Finally.
Yeah. It's tough to say. It's such a mix of emotions. There's relief, obviously, but there's shame, maybe even regret. He sees how wrong he's been, how close he came to pushing David too far.
And then, just when you think maybe things will change, Saul does something really surprising. He begs David to spare his family. He says, basically, don't let me be the start of some cycle of violence. Like he realizes the possible consequences here.
It's this raw moment. You have this powerful king, and he's acknowledging his choices, asking for mercy from the very person he's wronged. And David makes an oath. Even though he's got the upper hand, he chooses compassion.
So does he just, walk into the palace and it's all good?
Not quite. Remember what I was saying about those layered choices? This story, it's not over yet. He goes back to his stronghold. He's still cautious, still waiting. He understands justice, but he also gets it. Patience. He's willing to wait for his time, even if it means hardship.
I don't know about you, but when I read these moments, this is where I really see who David is. He's always seen as this hero, this giant slayer, the future king, but here he is, living as a fugitive.
Right.
It would be so easy to just give in.
Oh, absolutely. To become cynical, to embrace the very darkness that Saul seems determined to create.
And yet he chooses something else.
And he does it again and again. Think about it. He could have easily taken revenge, could have seized power. It was right there.
But he doesn't.
He doesn't. Restraint, mercy, faith. He chooses all of those things.
He understands that leadership, real leadership. It isn't about taking what you can. It's about being, well, what a ruler should be, even when no one's looking.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder, were these years, the years of being hunted, of having to make these impossible choices, was that what really made him who he became?
I think so. It's an argument for sure.
It's not just about a chase scene in David's life, is it? It's about his character, how it's formed. You see him wrestling with his conscience, looking for guidance even when it's hard. And that integrity, you just don't see that very often, especially back then, in these power struggles.
Right. It makes you think about leadership today. Who do we admire? The people who always win. Or, the ones who, like David, show restraint, who look for that guidance and lead with strength, but also with humility.
That's the question, isn't it? It's so easy to get caught up in ambition, in the pursuit of power, whatever it takes. But David's story, it offers something different, something that says justice matters, but so does mercy. Ambition, sure, but with integrity. And trusting in something bigger than yourself.
It's a good thing to remember, I think. Sometimes those hard choices, the ones that make you dig deep, that make you maybe go the less obvious way, those are the choices that really show who we are. David could have so easily become a reflection of Saul, but he didn't. He chose to be something else. Faith, resilience, integrity.
And that's what makes this such a good story. We're not just reading an ancient text. We're looking at themes that are still so relevant. Leadership, faith, the idea of forgiveness, and how we balance our desire for justice with, well, compassion. It stays with you. It makes you think about your own life, your own choices, what success really means to you. What kind of leader do you want to be?
Right. We've all been there, haven't we? The tough decision, the easy way out. And that's the power of this story. It's old, but it still gets to something in us. It reminds us that even when everything seems dark, we've got a choice. We can be like Saul, controlled by fear, or we can be like David, a leader who went through hard times, who's guided by faith, and in the end, someone who's defined by doing, well, what he thought was right.
Welcome to Charlie and Mia's podcast. We're embarking on an exciting journey to read through the entire Bible in just 1 year. Every day, we dive into Scripture, exploring its meanings and how it applies to our lives today. We invite you to join us on this incredible adventure of learning and discovery. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you never miss an episode.